Hive developer meeting 14. Okay, so that's think. I've been working a ton of the recurrent transfers. I feel like I'm pretty much ready for another review slash final, hopefully. I know Bartek already left me some comments, so I know it's not going to be final, but so long story short, the changes that I made are finally I ended up deciding to delete the recurrent transfer if it fails more than 10 times. I know it's already it's debatable, which Bartek has raised in terms of the cost to the chain. So I guess we can debate it now. Long story short, what Bartek is saying is that we can let it fail, and now that it has an end date, it's not as bad as if it was open forever, and the cost of the chain is the same, except that now we have to store a consecutive failure, which is an uint 8, which will cost the chain. But on the other hand, that means if we let it fail for 2 years, that means a lot of VOps that are here for no reason. So I feel like it's still worth it to delete it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same opinion as you. I think it might make sense to just stop it at that point. Because I mean, certainly it's going to be generating virtual operations, if nothing else, that aren't really needed to stay around. Of course, that implies you want to create a virtual operation, I suppose, to indicate that it's failed too.
Yeah. So basically, I didn't create a new virtual operation because I felt like it was overkill. So the failed virtual operation has a final parameter that is like deleted, and it's a Boolean. So if it's at true, that means that fail deleted the whole thing.
Okay, it's like a success fail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more than that. So there is a success VOP and the fail VOP, and the fail VOP has the deleted bool.
Okay, I see.
So that has been done. I've done extensive testing. All of the unit tests are done, which took longer than expected. And also I added some API calls so you can query using the from, like get all of the recurrent transfer from a user. I feel like it may be worth it to add Z2, like I'm Ho, I want to know who is doing recurrent transfers to me. Just because a lot of the front ends will kind of want that. But I know it means adding a new index, which costs memory, so I don't know if it's that worth it.
Oh wait, won't it just be in the impact list? So yeah, there's like an impact. There's an impact structure that says like for every transfer, it says who the
yes, that's exactly
is.
For that purpose.
Yes, that's the case. And impacted actually does that. Oh, cool. So that means I can just add a new index, and that won't cost more.
Yeah, just new data to the impact list, impact structure, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So that has been done. That works. I just need to do a replay, which hasn't been finished yet. And yeah, that's about it. I'll probably ping you guys to get a counter review. Oh, okay. Also,
what about unit? You've got unit tests, I guess.
Yeah, unit tests are done. Found quite a few bugs thanks to that, but I did quite extensive testing, including like having more than 1,000 recurrent tests at the same time and expiring and consecutive failures, etc. Which adds quite a bit of time because generating like 10 days worth of blocks takes some time. And finally, yeah, the only thing that's left pretty much is the RC considerations. So I dug a bit on the RC plugin, and the issue is that since RC are non-consensus, it's not possible right now to have something fail because it doesn't have enough RC if it's not a proper operation. Mm-hmm. So the way RC works right now is that you add a handler to pre-operation or post-operation, and basically it does stuff. Sorry, short. The issue is that if you don't have, since this is not an operation and more of a process that happens,
it doesn't stop the action.
Yeah, exactly. So you cannot like stop it that way. So I figured it was kind of out of scope for now because it requires redoing a lot of the of RC and potentially putting RC in consensus. Yeah, I figured it was out of scope for such a small quote unquote feature. So we could just put it to be more than
I think transfer. Just upfront transfer cost is probably the way to do it. that reminds me though of something I was talking to Bartek and Gandalf about earlier. They mentioned that inside inside the SMT code, I guess associated with the SMT code, there was also built this thing called automated actions. Are you familiar with those?
So the name rings a bell, but I haven't read the code in a very long time.
Essentially, it sounds like it's for doing things like recurrent payments, and so it's another. It's like so one of the, I think the examples I mentioned was that you could use it, for instance, for inflation. So you've created your coin, and now there's going to be some amount of the coin created every block. Yeah. And it was apparently this was done through these automated actions type thing, which sounds very similar to what's going on with their recurrent payments. So I think it would make sense to first find out if those automated actions are working. You looked at the SMT code. I think you were doing some SMT code testing in the past. So it makes perfect sense. And you're doing the recurrent transfer stuff too. So I think it makes sense to check that code out, see if it works, and then see if maybe that's actually the final mechanism we ought to use for the recurrent transfers too, because that could actually be a great test for the automated actions itself.
Yeah, true. And then we could port the SPS stuff as well.
Yeah.
But I remember there were a few issues with automated actions. I remember during my testing, I crashed the chain a few times with it. So.
Well, I mean, that's all the more reason. All the more reason to look at it, right? So yeah, sure. I mean, and this, I think this recurrent could be recurrent transfers could be a really good test for it.
Yeah, look into it. It could be interesting to.
Another task that they mentioned that I think would be nice to have somebody look at. You might, I don't know if you want to take this on or not, but I don't think it's too bad. The CLI wallet currently has this legacy communications method, which we'd like to get rid of. And it's particularly annoying because every time we add new operations like the one you're adding, we have to wind up writing all this extra code in the CLI wallet because of that. So I was wondering if you could look at what would be involved in getting rid of this legacy type code and just moving to less intensive code.
Yeah, so I looked a bit at it just because I was writing double code, and I was like, yeah, might as well see if it requires a lot or not. But it kind of involves a lot of compilation nightmares, which I'm afraid of.
Okay.
So I feel like it would be easier if you guys did it because you are way more familiar with the build system.
Maybe if we got somebody to sketch out how to do it and do like an example, you could take it on the rest of the way, possibly.
Yeah, in that sense, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But yeah, you mean removing the condenser API basically, and the way the wallet only uses the condenser API to communicate with it?
I believe that's the case. Bartek, Gandalf, one of you guys confirm that's what we're talking about? I believe that's what we're talking about.
Actually, we are talking about interface called Remote Node API.
Oh, yeah.
This is very similar to condenser API. And all of this code is a legacy implementation and involves a lot of maintaining problems specific to new parts of software, because we need to remember each time that there is such code. This code can make a silent failures when we forgot to add something there. What fortunately how fixed lately by adding their support for quite new virtual operation, which just don't appear in the history provided by CLI wallet. So that's good example why we should throw away this old part of the code and replace it with well-designed communication interface between CLI wallet and Hive. And probably also this is a good step forward to eliminate bad calling scheme known from condenser API and use new app-based scheme also here. So better in my opinion, just eliminate old code, which needs our additional attention before we are again add some new features which just need to additionally modify this old code base, and that's all.
Yeah, I feel like it's just like that needs to be tackled. So if you can show me the way, I'd be more than happy to do it.
Okay, so
It-
we'll get somebody to help you out. Get
Yeah,
started
it's just
on that.
that I don't feel senior enough to actually do the quote unquote right architecture.
Yeah. Okay. 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 Let's see. So, was there anything more on the recurrent transfers?
Let's see. Apart from the RC considerations, not really, no. And yeah,
Okay.
also please review my code now. That's
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I think I see some more reviews from Bartek already in my email
Yeah.
list.
Yes, we will definitely focus on it. Probably tomorrow. I have today got just a simple look at it, and definitely it will be helpful for us if you could describe testing scenarios you have planned there to avoid our analysis and reverse engineering your code.
Yeah, probably maybe more comments in the test
more comments,
cases.
which scenarios were put to test, it would be helpful.
I guess I'll do a post with a documentation on how it works and a few CLI wallet commands that I use to test usually.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he's talking about the tests in the commenting inside the tests themselves, so somebody can look at the test and know what it's testing exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think even specifying list of done scenarios in merge request description will be helpful, just to see which paths you have covered, which potentially are not yet.
Well, I hope that I like the comments in the code itself, because
yes,
exactly. The merge request gets lost.
Good.
Well, I mean, I didn't put comments on the actual unit test, but I did put like boost info, boost log, something like this, where I basically put a log whenever I test a new test case. So that part should be kind of covered.
Okay, well, I haven't even had a chance to look at it yet, so I can't really
yeah,
comment.
I mean, but yeah, no worries. I'll add more details.
Okay.
Just so it's easier for you guys. Just
yeah,
I
I think I get the impression he's just not sure what the test is testing. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That's all for me.
Okay. So as far as us, I guess as far as work we did last week or so, we did a lot of small tasks, optimizations, bug fixes. We added some new tests. We added some improvements to the test system to allow spawning of multiple tests simultaneously, because we've got so many people working in HiveMind now that it gets to be a pain when you have to wait in the queue a couple hours for your turn to have your code tested. One of the optimizations we did related to using tag data is requiring us to Postgres to use the int array extension. I've already made a note of that to the API node operators, but I'll just mention it here as well. And then we've finished the code for decentralized lists and muting at this point, and we're working on doing some UI work on Condenser, which I think we'll complete today, which is basically the UI for users to actually manage those lists. And we'll probably deploy that likely today or tomorrow on production, assuming there's no problems. We're also, along the same lines, we're going to be deploying a new version of HiveMind very shortly, within I'd say the next day or so, after we get a few things done. As far as what's left, we've also, Bartek's created an automated test for full sync of the entire blockchain that we can run automated now. I think he's still putting a few finishing touches on that. And that's good, because it already found one error apparently. On the Hive D side, we've made 2 minor changes. We're keeping track of expired proposals now. Previously, that data was getting discarded, but I think it's useful to keep that data for a while. And we had API support for getting those expired proposals, so it makes sense that we actually maintain them so that the API works. And then I made a change. Gandalf, during some of his testing, just recently found out that if the block log index is corrupted and gets rebuilt, some of the changes we made for speeding up some other stuff slowed that down. So I made some changes to that last night, and so now that process is a lot faster. It was taking about 15 minutes, and now it's closer to 3 or 4 minutes. And it was taking an hour after the slowdown, so we definitely needed to do something there. As far as what we're doing next, one of the things Bartek's working on today, that things he mentioned he needed to do today, was he's going to work on pruning some of the reputation data after the initial sync finishes, which should lower the constant size of the database, which will be good for when we make a HiveMind dump, which we're going to be making pretty soon too, to provide to all the API node operators. We've got one final fix to follows, which we're waiting for a few more changes, and then we'll merge that in. So after those 2 changes are in, the reputation data decrease and the follows fix, we'll deploy all that to production and test it along with the changes for decentralized lists. So hopefully all that's going to happen by tomorrow. And if all those changes work out well, we'll deploy that to all the API node operators, and we'll also deploy the new condenser that supports decentralized list management. And the other thing we're working on right now is we're continuing work that I've discussed in my posts, which is on a Hive D plugin that directly injects data into HiveMind, and that's probably going to be going on for all of next week, I suppose. But that's pretty much what we've done and where we're working, what we're planning for the next week. And after that, I think when that's done, I think roughly by the end of next week, we'll be done all of our, I'd say, optimization work. We'll still have some people dedicated to creating more tests, but mostly, I guess one other thing we're doing this coming week is double checking all the APIs associated with communities and creating tests for those, just to be sure those are all working ideally and working fast enough. So that'll include benchmark tests as well as functional tests being added for those. But at that point, we'll have, I think, a fairly good set of test cases. Although, like I said, just to cover all the cases, we'll have a couple people continuing to work on that for, I don't know, probably several weeks. And so after next week, I guess you could say our core development guys will hopefully be to the point where we're going to start moving on to new features and things like that, new planning. A lot of that will be based off the work I discussed in my post about what we're planning for the next 6 to 9 months type thing.
Yeah, okay. Wait, 6 to 9? Does that mean, hard fork 25 is in 6, right?
The hard fork's in 6 months, but some of the other stuff is independent of the hard fork.
No, non-consensus. A quick question on the plugin for HiveMind. Will it generate SQL that will be directly sent?
No, it's actually directly talking to the database. Well, I mean, it'll be making SQL queries. It'll literally connect up to the database and add, inject code. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just afraid of the maintainability of something like this, because it means that if we change the table structure, that means we need to change the plugin as well.
No, because the whole point of this is part of this is actually we're going to have the tables that it injects are 2 very simple tables. One's about blocks and one's about operations. So that's all the plugin does, is just interject that data.
Yeah, okay. And then the processor will actually
there's a little bit more actually, but it's also the impact data we're also copying as well. But essentially it's basically like fairly raw data. So the idea is you run this plugin, it fills your database with raw data, and then you have additional code based on what you want to do with that data. So you may build extra tables that have post data, you may, reputation data or whatever, but it's up to you in your HiveMind what auxiliary tables you want to build. You get these 2 basic tables, which is the blockchain data. and then and so it's some processing of some basic processing of blockchain data. But then your Hive mind code is what determines what kind of APIs you want to support based on that data. So if you just want to run like a game, you may only keep the follows data and maybe the accounts data and not much else.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, that's very elegant.
Yeah, but this means that HiveD needs to have a direct connection with the SQL server.
That's right. That is that's the design. If you want to use this method, you will create your Hive-D plugin will communicate directly with the Postgres server.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a plugin that you can disable, obviously.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we are done with DevSync, probably the longest we ever had.
I think we've done longer.
Yeah, true. Okay, so some considerations. It should be relatively quickly. Because it's like small consensus changes that were discussed in the past 2 weeks. First of all is from Good Karma that was asking if we would consider changing the way voting currently works, aka allowing someone to spend, let's say, 10 votes at once. So that basically means that changing the maximum weight from a vote from 100% to, let's say, 1,000%. So that if someone wants to like spend everything at once, he can spend everything at once.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the 1,000% one vote, but I could see it being reduced from 10 per day to say 5 per day. But to me, this is sort of a lesser thing. I don't want to put this on the roadmap to do. I think we can evaluate this later on if we want to do this or not. But it seems to me it's not a critical thing, and it's going to take time and testing, and it has a lot of impact. There's a lot of potential impacts in any change. I mean, certainly the 1,000% vote could have potential economic impacts of significance that might be hard to predict. I'd rather scale it down to something more reasonable, even if we do this. And then I also have a question about how important it is.
Well, 1,000 is more of an idea, but
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the 5 because I don't want to vote 10 times a day every day.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it goes hand to hand with the whole allowing the vote window to be larger, so that people will feel less like bound to vote 10 times a day, and then less pressure to automate their votes. So if we have that, then we have manual votes are more interesting because you only have to vote for 5 pieces of content a day, which is more feasible than 10 times.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what's involved in the change, but after we get through lots of other stuff, if you want to take a look at it, you can and see what's involved there.
Yeah, it's mostly like preliminary stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like it could be worthwhile. Even 100% would be interesting. I think more would be dangerous just because
you'd make Transistor happy.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's a whole different problem related to that. The root problem. Root problem is that if there is a Hive investor, he needs to pay attention to content and vote unless he agrees to lose on curation rewards. So that's the actual problem here.
Well, that's one view of it. That is a view of it, but I don't think that's the only view of it. I think there's also another view, which is that you would like to have you don't have a huge amount of power, and you would like to vote more on some content. And right now,
yes, that's actually a good one. True.
So, I mean, I don't have a lot of sympathy for somebody who wants rewards for voting once a day. I mean, they're not really doing much. So I don't think they necessarily need to get much rewards. But and if they want to do that, then their option is they do have an option to just put themselves in an auto vote bot, which follows a curator. But I think 10 is pretty excessive. Most people don't have time to vote 10 times a day. That's probably true, unless they're really into it, and they might want to have some more power because they might want to see their vote move more than nothing when they make a vote in terms of the reward.
But yeah, that's about it. Then it's more of a broad question. It's very early, and we discussed it a bit by text, but I figured I would bring it up by voice so more people are aware that we are somewhat considering it. I mean, but yeah, basically it's the idea of replacing condenser, which is currently what we have on hive.blog, by Essency, which is essency.com. I'm still wary of that change. I'm not really on board.
I'm not by any means on board yet, but I think it's something we should at least investigate.
Yeah, but
right?
I think it's something that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's two aspects to it, right? There's one, it is a change for users, so there's that issue if we did it, and so that there's some question there involved there whether people would be okay with the idea, or it's not that we can't. It also doesn't mean we have to discontinue condenser or anything like that. It just means we don't develop it as much or as rapidly. But there's a second side of this too, which is the technical side, which is also needs the most exploration. Is we need to take a hard look at both code bases and just see what makes sense. And so from my point of view, it's not having reviewed either of these code bases or assigned anyone to review them in depth. It's too early for me to really talk too much about this issue, unless somebody else wants to do this.
Oh yeah, I mean, it isn't really about like taking a decision. It's more about like bringing awareness.
Just awareness, yeah. So yeah,
because,
so from a point of view of wow, it could be desirable. Obviously, if we didn't have to maintain two code bases that do essentially the same thing, that's always good. And there's also a reasonable chance that Essency is using a more current framework than Condenser is using. I know Condenser is using a relatively old React framework, and I don't know about Essency.
Essency is using React as well.
Yeah, but I don't know what framework they're using. So I mean, it comes down. React is good. I think React is a good choice for a framework, but there's various versions of React frameworks. React is just sort of the underlying technology. So if Essency is using a more current one that's better maintained, that could be another argument for developing off Essency rather than Condenser. But again, just a lot of stuff to look at there. Not only the framework, but what functionalities there and things like that.
Yeah, when it needs to be added, etc. Yeah, I feel like it's mostly a question of tech debt because as we, and when I say we, it's you, are going to have way more front-end development to like delve into stuff. This is where it would be really interesting to see if it's really worth like climbing the tech debt mountain. And then
I'll be honest. When I assign guys a decent number of guys to this, we've had some people working on Condenser all along, of course. But when we have a full team working on this, I'm going to look at three distinct possibilities I can think of so far, which is A, we continue with Condenser. B, we move to Essency, and 3, we create something entirely new. So there's a lot of options.
Yeah, so that true. But yeah, I guess that's about it. I was just wanting to scratch.
I think I saw something from I think I saw a chat message from Guilty Parties. Yeah, he says there needs to be a technical comparison. Yeah, that's so right. I'm going to assign somebody to do that technical comparison, basically.
Yeah, obviously.
I have a team for it.
Yeah, I feel like it's the bigger thing we want to do. And yeah, finally, it's actually an old issue from Archange, who would like to have a new virtual operation. Long story short, when the recovery account is updated, we don't push a virtual operation, and yeah, I feel like it's something that we should do since it's involving.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree on that.
So yeah, I think it's something that I'll tackle because it's like super easy, and
yeah, that sounds fine.
I mean, I'll probably do that during the week. But yeah, basically just add a new virtual operation for that. And yeah, while we're at it, perhaps we could also think of the issue that when you do a recurrent recovery account updates, you don't have a timer on it, and it could be interesting to have that like time until in the API, because right now the only thing you can do is look at the virtual operation and that's it, which could like throw some people off guard if someone like takes control of the account, sets a new recovery account, and then like lets it go, and you only find out like 30 days later. that could be something to dig into.
Okay. I'm not. I'll have to see exactly. Probably best to communicate through chat for that, and I'll take a look
Yeah,
at what you're
pretty
saying.
Yeah, it's out of the meeting anyways. But yeah, that's all for today. Do you guys have other points?
I don't have anything else.
Okay, well, great. See you guys at Hive Fest then.
Yep. See you guys. Bye.
Yeah, definitely. See you at Hive Fest.
Bye.
There, bye.
Bye.